this. Go over here. Okay. So another thing I want to know, Fangirl, is I'll be able to stream the Discord server itself. So if you are mentioning something that is relating to this server, I'll be able to show people what's happening.
Okay. All right. The recording bot works. So.
Do we have a do we have a questions channel for the GenCon stuff?
Thread. I'll make one later once like more people start coming.
Also, hello Ace, how are you? If you are there. Oh, there's Kiniz.
Okay, just.
I'll invite them to speak real quick.
Yeah, alright. Forgot that I gave you permission, so yeah, just handle that for me.
Yeah, no problem. There they are.
All right, I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, a bit loud. You're a bit loud.
A bit loud? Okay, I'll fix that.
Why is my camera so freaking...
How's that? Am I a bit better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm currently sending out a message to everyone that signed up, just on the GenCon side of things. What's happening? Chris, when are you going to put the Twitch up?
Very soon. I'm currently just adjusting camera settings so I don't look like I'm a White Walker.
Perfect. How's everyone's day been so far?
It's been alright.
Yeah, it's good. Alright, I'll just be doing like some last minute like permission checks and whatnot. So, yeah.
Okay.
Ace is saying they cannot be heard. That is a problem. Ace, can you hear us? I shall wait their response.
Ace, you can use no mic as a crutch.
They can hear us fine. Okay, cool.
You're gonna try rejoining probably.
They just tried to call me? I don't think they know to do that.
The call, might be checking to see if.
Maybe.
Wow.
Okay, like 15 minutes. So.
Yeah. I mean, we're also waiting on Nerf still, so we're not going to go live immediately upon 7. We're going to go live once we get everyone here.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just fool around with my permissions.
Fangirl, do you mind putting my Twitch stream in the GenCon info so that people know?
Yeah, I will do that. Once it's closer to 7, so that when people click on it, it will go live.
Cool. There's Ace again.
Trying again. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, hello.
It is in here.
Your mic quality sounds good as well.
Full disclosure, I'm on mobile, so if I ever start getting robot-y or whatever, just yell at me to shut up and I'll do myself.
Sure. Okay. Nerp said he'd be finished with his game at pretty much exactly 7 or around 7, so we still have some time.
What? By the way, Kiniz, I'm not sure if you've I'm not sure how the GenCon ticketing system works, but do the people who pre-registered get our invite already?
If he set it up that way, yeah, he has to set it out.
I have just sent out an invite to everyone, basically posting on a message board that people will look at on GenCon.
Okay, so we should get some more people joining us soon.
Yes.
Cool.
I hope to get in on that sweet stage discovery. action as well. Yes.
Hmm. All right, I'm gonna check some volume levels for the stream. Can you guys just speak for me, please?
Hi, I'm FG. This is a mic test. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
Testing
good.
1,
I had
2,
to
3.
lower input volume or
Okay.
whatever the heck it's called. Cool. That should be good now. I don't want you guys to be louder than me during my stream after all.
I will double check to be sure that the message will be sent to everyone who signed up.
Cool. It should. When I did my event yesterday, it went out as soon as I hit send, and people joined pretty much immediately. To answer your question, Bruni, I am from Tableside Gaming and a few other notable servers, like Empire for Dwayne. Remember other servers that I work on. Technically D5, I help out there sometimes.
Yeah, how are okay. How
Oh.
I forgot to ask this earlier. How is D5 doing? Never heard from them in a while.
They're doing all right. They're doing a lot of how do I say? They're doing a lot of more like self-server growth and
Okay.
stuff like
Like
that.
they're doing
So-
some self-care, focusing on themselves.
Exactly, yeah, because they've been having I wouldn't say problems, but they've been having like activity issues here and there, so they've been trying to focus on those.
I thought that they were like growing pretty quickly, but then they sort of stagnated. So I was like, oh, what happened?
Nah, I still frequently talk to the owner, Eminem. Him and I are good friends.
I am going to change my name to Kiniz for this panel because it'll get confusing. But to answer the question earlier, I'm kind of a floater. I exist on a bunch of different servers, and I make a point kind of bring ideas to places if I see something work or not work. I help startups, I help smaller groups kind of get situated. I give advice to larger groups that might be doing something different or might be looking to branch out on sister servers. I kind of just exist to help people connect with the greater community.
Yep. He's kind of like the unorganized version of me. I do all of that a lot more organized with actual groups and communities, you know.
So do I, with actual groups and communities.
Hey man,
So you've been-
I don't know, man. I think I was the
I'm
one who
trying
created
to
the
help
tabletop
you.
plans, you know.
Oh, hi, Nut. So great to see you. I was
Hello,
a bit
Nerd.
afraid. Yeah.
And
Greetings.
How are you?
I'm doing well. By yourself?
Doing all right. I'm currently setting my camera stuff up because I don't want to look horrible on stream.
I need to find my webcam. It's probably in my pile of.
Yeah, we don't need webcams, by the way. It's just like
No,
a
not
thing.
everyone
Yeah,
has.
if you want to stream this though, you can feel free to.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I actually kind of forgot. I almost forgot that actually Syrik has their own Twitch channel as well.
Yeah,
So yeah.
you should shout us out on your stream and also server so we get more people
Yeah.
here.
I'll do so.
Cool.
Give me that
Thank
link.
you.
I'll give you a shout out.
Oh, we also have like, yeah, just actually, maybe you want to just create like invite link from our About Us channel or just no mic, I don't know. Yeah, so that we can see how many people we are getting from this particular event, and then we know how many people are coming specifically to listen to this event.
I'm actually gonna go live on Twitch a
Okay.
little bit early.
Have we figured out your microphone issue yet?
I believe they did.
If you unmute, could you try talking? Just so we're sure.
They did say something earlier and their mic sounded fine. I think they were just saying they might have connectivity issues.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't respond, we're going to assume that they are dead, and thus move on.
Until we speak out of this.
Yes.
Maybe they got pulled away by work or something.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, they said they're busy right now because of conflict issues, scheduling and stuff.
Or at least they could attend. So that's, I know, like, at least we can get some of the TFC support.
Mm-hmm. No, the event has not started as of yet. We're still kind of like gathering our.
Don't worry about Tabara. They just they tend to freak out a lot. Yeah.
Cool.
Hi Tabara, I'm making fun of you.
Yeah, this is all pre-stream nonsense. We got 10 minutes. Just
Yeah,
kind of
you got 10
relax.
minutes.
A large amount of people will probably be coming in like the hour because GenCon people tend to like go from one event to another.
It's a pity that we are not like a physical panel. I find that it's a bit difficult to get people to show up online panels, especially since like most of the time when I go to like a panel, I tend to like, you know, I only like attend a panel if like it just happens to be, oh, I saw something cool in the program booklet, and then now I want to go. But with like so many events going on in GenCon, like online, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we don't get lost in the shuffle.
Okay, I'm actually gonna go live with
Yeah, no
Cool.
problem.
Yeah, good.
This is not right. Hold
This is,
on. Something doesn't seem right here. Hold on a moment.
don't worry,
Right.
we have like 10 minutes to figure it out.
Okay. If I do this, and then I do this, why is that not there? What the heck? Okay, it does work. It's just glitchy. Alright, cool. Freaking OBS. Gotta love it. Alright. Is
By the way, if spectators, you guys are seeing more channels pop up, it's because I'm also like granting you guys permission to see a couple more channels. So yeah, just feel free to take a look at those when in between the stream or just now afterwards. For me, since I'm the host, I'll be like sticking on a little bit after the panel. If you have anything you want to talk to me about, yeah, doesn't matter if you're from this server or not. Yeah, I'll be pretty happy to talk about like how you find the server and whatnot.
All right, I'm just double checking my sound one last time. Is everybody okay with that? Can everybody
Yes.
hear me? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yeah, fine,
Sounds
fine.
good.
Thank you for showing up so last minute there.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I mean, with the
Yeah.
kerfuffle, I'm quite surprised that still able to find the time to, you know, hang out.
Yeah, no problem. Mm-hmm.
Nerp, what Twitch tags do you use for this kind of thing?
I have it set to. I go back to my list. I'm now forgetting what I had it set to. Here we are.
Can girls go crazy?
GenCon D&D.
Okay. Apparently that's not a tag that exists somehow. I'm using
GenCon?
Streamlabs. I don't know if that matters.
Okay, time for the flood, man. Oh god.
Yeah, Nerp. When
we already
when I
passed the
say
300 window just by that shout out.
nice.
You can also just put like podcast. I think that would probably be more
Why is
populated.
podcast not on here? The heck? What are these tags? This is literally my first time streaming in like 6 years, so this entire tag thing is completely new to me. I don't know what any of these mean. Should I put American? Should I put that I'm from America? It's one of the tags. It's one of the options.
Yeah, I think you should just like, I mean, at this point, just
Why is-
focus on the ones that
Yeah.
will garner us a lot of traffic.
Why is character creation a tag, but tabletop isn't a tag? What the heck?
I would just use
Try.
roleplay since tabletop's not a tag. Same
Yeah,
general concept.
good choice.
And then chatty.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing that.
By the way, guys, you will all be recorded once the stream starts. Yeah. I mean, yeah, everyone should. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Just because it's 7 a.m. for a bunch of my members now, so and I've got a couple of I've gotten an influencer friend of mine to shout us out, and there's been like some people who can't attend since it's not within their it's not they're not available now.
Okay. I'm also gonna put the writing tag because this is technically about writing.
What?
World building and living worlds.
No. People are gonna come in and be like, "What the hell is going on?"
No, it's fine. It's world building and world discussion, so it makes sense to include writing because people.
They're going to be those terrible con goers who just go to every open door and see what the panel's about, but never actually stay. It'll be great.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm gonna go live right now. Are you sure you want to start streaming? No, I am not sure. Hello. Okay. I think this stream is working now. Yep. There we go. All right. So when are we starting? In like 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Also, I'm gonna keep my stream on just my webcam and like a background image for a while. If you guys want me to stream specific things, let me know. Like if you want me to stream parts of the Discord server.
I think that works for an audio medium. Also, can you guys hear the like thousands of bugs I'm sharing this bench with? It's so loud for me over here. Okay, that's great.
Oh, no, it's quite clear for me.
Hear it.
Honestly, your mic quality sounds really good for mobile, which is interesting.
Yeah, I'm mobile, I'm outside, but thankfully it's a golf course, so it's pretty quiet.
Cool. Also a golf course?
Yeah, they moved my faculty dinner, so my day job has me out here. And it's an interesting clash of events, unfortunately.
Cool.
I think like later I'll ask you maybe to pan to like a certain channel if like we're talking about like tracking, for example, currency, maybe we can like pan to one of the transaction channels.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just let me know.
Okay, we're looking at getting started in a couple of minutes. The listening count's going up. Are we live on Discord stage? How does that?
We are not live yet. We are going to go live in one moment.
I've already started recording, just in case we want to. I don't know. Something wrong happened. I don't know. But yeah, we're already live on Twitch. We've been so for about 2 minutes now.
Oh.
I'm going live now.
Boost view count.
We have 26-ish people listening right now on Discord.
Okay.
If we make the announcements, I imagine it's going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to do right now.
All right. I've just started recording, and then we're about to go live on Discord as well.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to turn off requests. No more people can request to speak. Yeah.
Okay, just.
Sorry, wait. How do I make this go live?
I don't know. I don't know how to make an event public after you've already made it.
Okay, open stage. All right, we're live.
Aha.
Okay.
Hello.
Greetings.
Hello. It is 7 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
Eastern Daylight Time. We are the motley crew of Living World owners and workers, gathered here to tell you all about Living Worlds, what they are, what the future holds for them, and what our roles are in our communities. We'd like to start with Chris. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we can go down the line.
Yes, hello. I am the owner of a few different locations on Discord. I've been around in the Discord community for a very long time, about 6 years, but I've also been around in the D&D community for probably about the same amount of time. But when it comes to Discord specifically with D&D, I've only been around for 3-ish years, working on various living worlds with people, West Marches. I usually am one of the admins on a living world. For example, there's a server called Empire of Wayne. I'm an admin there. I help out. One of the other panelists here, Nerp, I help him a little bit with Syrik, which is his living world, and I also have a few servers I run as well that are more community focused, such as my main server, Tableside Gaming, which is just a place for people to find tabletop games. And yeah, that's me.
I guess FJ, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think I'm FJ and I'm the owner of Dnd World. So West Marches and Living Worlds have been part of my life since I first started my whole TTRPG journey. Dnd World is my home. I'm practically I practically learned everything I need to know about TTRPGs here. So I hope that through this stage, you guys get to know a little bit more as well. Yeah.
Ace, would you like to go?
Oh, there
Oh
they go.
no,
Ace is having technical.
their connection is most unfortunate. Oh, they're back.
Yeah. For some reason, when I mute myself, all of a sudden I can't unmute myself, so I have to keep leaving and rejoining. Sorry about that. But hi, I'm Ace. I run a West March style server called the Forge Concordance. It's been around for a little over a year. It is a live play over voice and Roll20 style server. We have usually active about 2,000 members. We do a very in-depth clean out every 4 months of inactive accounts and stuff. So our numbers tend to be fairly appropriate for what's going on. Yeah, been playing D&D for about 10 years and been on Discord for about 6. So.
Good, very good. Greetings, I am Sir Nerp. I am the server owner of the World of Syrik gaming community, which also houses a living world that is currently in the works, being transitioned from a previous living world to, as mentioned by Chris, my living world of Syrik. It's currently fairly early access, but we've been posting videos going over what we've been working on. It tends to be every Sunday when we do this. You can expect a new one tomorrow. Overall, I've been gaming D&D, Pathfinder, similar systems such as like World of Darkness and the like for about 14 years now. Running a Living Worlds for about 3, maybe 4 at this point. I don't really remember exactly when, but yeah, there you go.
Okay, and I am Kiniz. I am a kind of floater, goes from server to server. I'm in about 60 to 70 living worlds right now, helping them connect to each other, helping with partnerships, teaching new startups how to get things going, helping them avoid some of the common pitfalls. Right now, I'm helping a group of VTubers set up a living world for their existing community, as well as a couple of other startups and servers that are rebranding. I think that's everything for introductions. And if you all would like, we can move to the first question, which is,
All right.
what is a living world and how is it different from a West March? We're going to start with Chris and then go down the line. Okay.
All right, so when I first heard of what West March servers were, I was in college, and I sat down, and my friend was like, hey, I have this West March going on. It's a persistent world where I play with some other DMs, and you can play in this world. It was a pretty fun time. I enjoyed myself, but I sat there thinking, what if there could be more about this? What if I could instead of just having a few DMs and like 5 players, what if it could be so much greater than that? This was around the time of Discord's very beginning, and as a result, Discord wasn't considered a platform for any of this. And prior to like 3-ish years ago, Living Worlds pretty much didn't exist. They existed in some forms, but they were very obscure, very rare. You'd find them on Reddit, and they'd be mostly like play-by-posts. And then it all started with a few servers, much like Dnd World, Concordance, Syrik, and a few others, that started to kind of take the Westmarch formula and expand upon it, going further and further down the idea of having more open role play, having less restrictions character-wise, and instead of just being about going out on campaigns and doing missions and stuff, it became just living a life in a fantasy world, all through Discord. It's basically what a living world is and how it sets itself apart from a Westmarch. I think that answers the question.
Great. Yeah.
So FU, would you want to go?
Yeah, honestly, like, yeah, thanks, Chris, for like the compliments. So yeah, like Chris said, I think when I was getting started, living worlds were not a thing. It definitely was. It's a very modern term and very recent. By TTRPG standards, Westmarcher systems definitely exist. That is where I got my first foray into Westmarcher's play. I find that as the time goes on, living worlds the term living world has been more popular, and I've always understood it as having a role play component to the West, in addition to having the regular Westmarchers features. So you could say that living worlds are like Westmarchers, but they are also focused on roleplay, maybe through text, and usually have some form of homebrew systems to supplement in between quests, like downtime, guilds. Sometimes people have crafting and a whole bunch of other things that basically makes it a more well-rounded experience other than just going out on quests. Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of going on with that. They are currently like official styles of Living Worlds. I mean, there's the Adventurers League. That's a version of a Living World. Same with Pathfinder Society. I believe there's a few for World of Darkness, maybe a few for Mutants Masterminds. But overall, the style of Living World that we tend to focus on goes into the whole RPing with your fellow companions, your different players, different groups of people who might have interests in perhaps being a thieves guild, for example. Could perhaps even have a whole country based upon this living world where the players themselves are like members of the kingdom, like the ambassador of it, or perhaps guards of the kingdom. Could have multiple different kingdoms in the region as well, where it's just what the players do changes the story itself. Think of it kind of like a living world MMO, so like Dungeons and Dragons Online or World of Warcraft, where their actions kind of pushes the developer's narrative in some ways, but with the freedom that a tabletop RPG provides, where really anything can occur, so long as the dungeon masters and the players all are able to work as one cohesive unit, which tends to be the case for most tabletop groups. Overall, you will generally find most games themselves in Living Worlds to be a bit more focused due to the nature of Living World compared to a traditional style play, where you might have, for example, you might have it limited where you can't fight certain demons because there's not really a portal that can provide access to those. But players can certainly find ways to gain access. It's just really in the hands of the players overall.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite interesting, I find. Yeah, you and I have pretty different definitions, but yeah, I can certainly say that like West Marches play and like Living World play started out as like a sort of form to give more control to players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of attest to that. A lot of the Living World stuff that I've helped design is mostly been around the idea of giving players more control over their own destiny, as weird as that sounds. But yeah.
I come from a devil's advocate standpoint is TFC is mostly a West March server, but we're always trying to insert Living World aspects into it to make the players feel more involved with the homebrew world that we've created, and that's through roleplay chats and through roleplay events and through downtime mechanics, so that they can have at least something to do when they're not always on a mission or on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And then my take on it. Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think the biggest difference between Living Worlds and West Marches would be West Marches tend to, and correct me if I'm wrong if this is not the case with your own server, Ace, but West Marches tend to be focused in like one kingdom, and the players themselves are pushing outwards into wilderness, wildlands that are not civilized or like don't really hold anything there, where the players themselves can perhaps like build their own things in the West Marches.
Yes,
tends to be
so
the name.
that's a traditional style West March. On TFC, we decided to open up the entire country for people to. Basically, every DM on TFC, I give permission for them to build their own towns and create their own storylines. And if they want to affect another person's city or another person's area, they have to cooperate and talk to each other about it and sort of develop their story together. Because I felt that giving DMs more leeway to tell their own stories creates a more diverse and in-depth, like living world for the characters to play in, and a different and unique style every sort of mission they partake in, at least.
Yeah, I mean, the original definition or the original idea of a Westmarch came from the Grand Campaign setting of Chivalry and Sorcery that was released in 1978 or so. And that was the original idea of a Westmarch, that there is, to the east there is civilization, to the west is undocumented frontier. You go out and explore. And that's kind of what gave Westmarch its unique meaning, was a large amount of players in one setting that worked collectively in pickup groups to explore. Living worlds kind of are more of a broad, at least in my interpretation, there's no strict phrasing of it, but in my interpretation, living worlds are more broad sense of just multiple DMs and multiple players in one world. And living world and West marches are more about, marching, exploring, creating, documenting.
Yeah, I think that the thing about West Marches is that there was like a clear originated point where people did say like, X person invented it, Y person popularized it, and you can clearly track like progression of this term over time. Living Worlds, I think, still quite fluid. I think no one has actually sat down to write up how Living Worlds have progressed over time.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to catalog what makes a living world and kind of have more defining features for them. NERP can also attest to this. We're kind of developing a lot of bots that are exclusively for living worlds to help them kind of differentiate themselves from a lot of other Westmarch-like servers, stuff like travel bots, for example.
Yeah, I hired a robot, and he makes all of our bots to run our downtime stuff. They work great, but yeah, they're not like commercially available. So unless you have someone who's good at coding, it's kind of hard to do, and a lot of it ends up being like human input, and then there's human error that you have to worry about. Like it's mechanically wise, it can sometimes be like a lot to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely, I can agree with that. I think
this is actually
most like even general like TTRPG servers or forums in general might focus on events, but if you are like working on a living world, you're also working on systems and items and stuff like that behind the scenes, not just events.
Yeah, and this kind of
There's
segues
also
into our
yes,
uh,
this is segue.
yeah, it segues into our second question, which was what are the elements of a living world server? And I mean, yeah, basically the elements of them are a lot of role play, a focus on being able to have more player freedom than anything else. And I mean, those are the general ones. There's a lot of more specific ones. When you go from server to server, you'll see some servers are more about uh, less player restrictions in terms of mechanical benefits. Others are more about like being able to have more trade professions you can do. But the general core themes are role playing and player freedom, pretty much.
Should we maybe move on to the second question, guys? Because we're about a
Yes.
fourth of our time. All right. So, what are the most important features in a living world or a West March?
I just said that was segueing into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, if you guys want to talk about this as well, you can.
I think a solid benefit for a living world features would be having a great framework for your quest systems. That alone would greatly benefit any dungeon master team from being able to provide the missions and the adventures that your players will be going on. So having, like, for example, a in-depth experience system, as well as like what regions can be what type of missions, all these different frameworks set up to build the overarching plot is pretty important. Of course, there's the standards. You want to rule cool. You want to have phone as a focus for your players. But in terms of a living world in general, generally the framework of the quest is pretty important.
Yeah. FG, do you mind if we do that Q&A channel?
Yeah.
Please. Yes.
Okay.
That way we can collate all the questions we have.
For me, with the living world difference, it's hard to maintain. I feel like the more people that are invested in it, and the better it is, the more people are going to want to get involved. So the more people you have, and then it becomes this huge sort of cluster of confusion that really needs to have a lot of organization. Otherwise, it's going to be just awful to try and wrangle everything together. Organization's like a huge thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of what bots are for a lot of times, and logging and Google Sheets and all this other stuff, to help with that organization, having a team dedicated to just logging, like, hey, did someone decide they were going to buy a single apple? All right, time to log it,
Yeah, it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of inputting information. And thankfully, again, if you have a bot, it's easy. But if you don't, you need to really find a way to organize all that stuff. Another big important thing is like having a story that you, I think, want to tell at some point, like for the overarching world, just having like endpoints. And TFC suffers in its lore regard, I'm going to be honest, but we're like working on it to improve it. I've created like a lore team who thankfully like kind of wrangles all of the storylines together and is able to present it to not only me but the players, which is nice. But yeah, it's a lot. It's just a organization, I would say, is probably like the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually interesting. I don't think anyone's mentioned what I feel is like the big selling point, the big element of Living World West March servers, which is the whole idea of D&D tabletop games wherever you want, whenever you want. Not having to have a strict schedule of weekly meetings, not having to drive to Greg's house every Thursday.
I think
and
the idea
being able
behind
to take
that,
this character and progress throughout levels 1 to 20 in its entirety, playing with these people and having friends and being a part of this world.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's the biggest unique element of it.
Well, that's the thing. That's not just an element of a living world. That's also an element of West Marches, because the base core idea of a West March is it's more of a play anywhere, anytime, but it's more campaign focused. Living worlds have more role play openness. So I guess the way to parallel that with living worlds is that you can not just play a game almost anytime, but you could also role play your character with a ton of people anytime, anywhere you want. That's kind of the more important thing there,
That's probably why Living Worlds and West Marches are so often either confused for each other or presented together, is that they're a very complementary sort of way of play.
Yeah. I like looking at it as basically like a West March is a kind of like a baby living world where a lot of the features of Westmarch has, Living Worlds already have, but amplified to an insane degree. And as Ace said, that does mean it's a lot harder to organize and manage that Living World. But at the same time, you also get the trade-off of, well, now you can play in a giant open world, almost like you're playing World of Warcraft or something, but in D&D, you know?
At the same time, it feels a little weird to call a Westmarch a baby Living World because they take that effort and it doesn't just disappear. The effort that would have gone into the roleplay and everything goes back into their campaigns, their downtime systems potentially, and many of the other systems. So it's just a more focused setting that, as opposed to going out and doing all these things passively, you have the heavy emphasis on the campaign and playing in those campaigns.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I think it's a good time to move on. I don't have the list of questions, so.
Next question would be, what level of impact does a character have on the lore, economy, and shape of the world?
So this is a question that I think depends on the living world. The idea of a living world is that they should have as much impact as they put into the living world. In other words, if you put in a lot of hours, a lot of time into a living world, you should expect that your character is going to have a lot of impact on the world. But that's not always the case for a lot of servers. Some servers that are living worlds have some restrictions on certain things, like some places have more closed economy, others have closed political spheres, so your character can't become like a politician or something, change the world. Other ones are more like, I don't really know how to describe it. I think Nerp can describe this a little bit better, actually. He kind of gets what I mean, right?
Yeah. I mean, overall, it as you said, it's 100% going to be based on the living world itself, but the impact overall can be something as small as just a player beating a mission, and from that mission, perhaps the region that they beat it. So, like, maybe they're in a village. That village itself, upon completing the mission, could become bit more of a flourished haven of trade because they stopped the raids of the bandits upon the caravan there. That would certainly have impact on the world itself because the economy in there could start to expand upon itself, growing in size, more caravans, more trade, more coin for the world itself. Players could have impact on the economy just by being players. They can build their own items, crafting, depending on the living world itself. And depending on certain factors, they can even become, key players on the political field. The idea with one that we're currently working on is allowing them to, really do much of anything. If they want to find and become a king, they can certainly do that. If one of the countries in my world, actually, there's a Battle of the Bands style thing. And if you beat the king in the Battle of the Bands, you become king. And that is something I want players to be able to do, is just become king if they want to. They can shape the economy as they see fit. They can do pretty much anything that you would expect in a traditional style game is the goal, though there will, of course, be some limitations due to the requirements of the world itself. But
that, from my side at least, that becomes much more difficult.
Yeah, I was actually going to exactly copy what
it becomes so much more difficult the more people you have, because I don't know if FG's ever had this experience, but there are players who want to do like crazy stuff. Like we had a game, I think this morning, where someone wanted to bribe the capital city's jailer to sell prisoners' souls to a warlock they met. And unfortunately, we have to say, like, the DM had to say no, like, because we don't like telling players no, but when you run a server for like a grotesque amount of people, and then you also have a grotesque amount of people running games for you, you can't just have one or two players sort of like affect how other people then have to run their game all of a sudden when they've had things like written and ready to go, and then they have to fix everything. So it unfortunately makes the moderation side kind of the bad guys when we have to be like, you can't do that, because there's a lot of backdoor stuff when it comes to running OS marches that DMs have to go through and prep that we can't just kind of throw out the window whenever like a player wants to suddenly destroy like the main harbor for shipping stuff. Like it's just
if we are not married, either of us not married by the age of like 40, please marry me because you understand everything.
Yeah.
Understand everything.
I mean, I can attest to that as well because on other servers I work on, there's much of the same issue. However, I've seen that there are two paths you can kind of go down. The one path is one that's a lot more restrictive to the players. It's one where things like PvP are usually restricted in some way. World destruction is limited, and the world's a lot safer to play in. It's much more of a roleplay focused world as opposed to a mechanically focused world, is a good way to put it. And the other way you could go down is kind of just letting everything happen. Like if someone wants to murder someone else, they can, but there's also going to be guards, there's going to be a whole army coming after them, bounty hunters, etc. So there's kind of like there's two paths you can go down, and you really have to either commit to one or the other. Because if you try to stay in the middle, you'll like have those exact issues where someone goes, well, why is this person allowed to attack a dragon when I can't destroy this like blacksmith? And then you basically have to go, well, because it's affecting other players. You have to kind of veer down the path of just like we can't let players interact with other players in negative ways. We have to kind of restrict that in some way.
I can attest to that sort of. Like I see that in the way you're saying, but there are world-changing like decisions sometimes that players just cannot make. But I think it depends on the size of your living world, right? If your living world has over like 500 people, any sort of big decision like that will affect a bunch of people. So of course, if you're going to end up going through with it, you have to go through a bunch of moderation to make sure that everybody's okay with it, and like nobody's going to get pissed off and like leave or anything. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't mean to. But but also like if it's a smaller server, like, or just a group of people like 50, and you have maybe like 3 to 5 people running games for you, that's the type of Living World where you can like make a decision like that and just be like, hey, this happened, so just watch out for it, and then everybody else has to kind of deal with it, you know?
Yeah, and I think this actually. My God.
You go for many thoughts, so I will go the last.
All right, so let's just pick one. FG goes first. There.
My God.
Yes. First of all, everything is safe, but also I want to address what Chris said about having to commit to a path. I find that I generally will not choose the second option if given the choice, because when you like, I've managed to avoid the problem of generally people having like, if how come one person can do this law changing thing and I can't. Generally, we don't have this problem, but I would agree that those servers under a certain number of members can afford to do things that me and Ace probably can't. So I think the cutoff point roughly goes around like 100, 200, 300 maybe, definitely less than 500, because but I also find that when you do a very everything goes approach, as Chris suggested, it tends to get very messy because it's not scalable, and it's there are some people who will use your everything goes attitude to their advantage to lord over other players, or to basically, I mean, these kind of things happen in regular campaigns as well. It's just that in a regular campaign, perhaps everyone could be able to like explore their backstories in some way. But in like a West Marches Living World setting, like if one person's able to like become king or whatnot, then people are going to be like, how is this allowed? And like, how is their experience going to be changed over this kind of world-changing decision?
Yeah, and I can kind of answer that, and this also kind of segues into the next question as well, which is the idea of level difference. The Living World.
God.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
The Living World I specifically work on. I also want to know. Oh, sorry.
No. I would like to say that I had a personal experience with a character on a Living World, and it wasn't the biggest Living World, but they, through in-character actions and circumstance, became king of one of the nations. And I'm not going to go into a big anecdote here, but I had to give up that character because the admins did not feel comfortable having a player with that much authority. And it doesn't matter the size of the server, I feel. It can be a 50-person server, it can be a 500-person server. What matters is whether the admins and the moderators and the lore team willing to put the faith in the player to do right by the role they have and let the players really decide the fate of the world.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to talk about, is that the Living World
Mhm.
servers I work on, they use an altered form of D&D, one where there's a lot less of a gap between the levels. And also, I also use my own tabletop game I'm developing, which is very close, with a person who just started the game versus a person who's played for a few months the person who's played for a few months is going to be about twice as strong, whereas, a level 1 to a level 20 in D&D is, I don't know, some insanely high number, like a million times as strong. It's very different. And in the worlds that I run, the most incredible events you'll see, like the absolutely insane stuff, is stuff that all the players need to band together to defend against. Where if one player decides to go against the rest of them, it's not going to sway things too greatly. Like if a demon invasion happens and a player who's like a warlock goes, well, I'm going to side with the demons and help them out, it'll be a small amount of power for the demons, but it's not as if they're suddenly going to be destroying the city because of this.
I think.
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, and I think that comes down to the fact that D&D, the base game, which I know that FG and Ace you guys mostly use, aside from a few alterations, the higher levels are insane with what they can do. I mean, they
Oh,
have Wish,
agreed.
for example.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Wish is itself a thing that can destroy universes. So yeah, I think that's kind of the point being made, is that any server can do it with the whole anything goes. You just need to have a more balanced system for that. Because if you have a system like D&D and a level 20 just goes, you know what, today I'm going to cast Wish and wish the Demon Lord Orcus were in this world, suddenly the living world doesn't exist anymore.
You to assume he's not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. But yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. Thankfully, I played in a lot of Westmarch and Living Worlds before I created my own, and I was a huge part of Pathfinder Society. So I understood that leveling needed balance, and the way in which TFC runs its leveling is we go up to 20, but there will not be any level 20 games because we started to see very big world-changing problems at level 14. And basically, unfortunately, again, it goes back to our last question where one player decides to do a thing and then ruins the whole thing for everybody else. So we have to ban a lot of those big world-changing things. Like true polymorph is only effective when you're on a mission, and Wish can only duplicate spells because if it does any of that other really cool shit, it's great, but it's also extremely broken. And even then, like we have specific DMs who can only run like higher level games. Basically, when you join our DM team, you're a rookie DM. You show and understand how D&D works and how the server works, and then you get promoted. And then when your games are of a certain quality, you can get promoted to these legacy DMs that can run these high level games. And at that point, all of your boundaries and restrictions are removed, and you're able to do kind of whatever you want in a game, with the assumption that you are going to be fair to the players.
Yeah.
And you have to put that amount of trust in those people if you're running those games. But yeah, if you don't have a lot of sort of differentiation in how certain level players can affect each other, you're going to have a huge problem in Living World servers.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I think NERP as well has, isn't it your server, Syrik, basically the same idea as I was talking about, where it's a lot more balanced for closer interaction?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's where we're coming from with this.
It's definitely a fine line you have to ride to keep it available to do crazy reactions, but it's a lot of work. But it's work I think is worth the payoff.
Yeah. I mean, this is. Oh, sorry.
If you ask me, sorry, just to circle back, like when you said that any server can do anything goes, I would say that though reasonably speaking, a smaller server, I mean, I would recommend if there are any smaller server owners out there to go by this approach in general. But yeah, I mean, you could if you wanted to just when you're the bigger you are, the more consequences there are in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can actually segue that into question 5 pretty easily, because question 5 is advice for people who want to make their own living worlds. My advice is,
Oh,
unless
do
you
some
have,
research. Sorry.
yeah, my advice is if you don't have a lot of time, if you're a busy person and you want to try and own your own living world, don't, unless you can free up a lot of time.
Yes.
I mean this very,
Yes.
very sincerely. Everyone here spends a lot of their free time just focusing on living worlds and developing them and doing a ton of other stuff. It's a
Yeah.
bit insane.
It is a full-time job. It's a volunteer job, but it's a full-time job.
I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna disagree here, but I'll let you guys speak first.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to kind of delegate and give away some of that power to other people that you trust. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to just keep track of everything. There's just so much stuff going on in any Living World server. You got to learn to delegate some of that craziness.
I mean, the main thing is, if you want to start a good Living World server, you need a good team to back you, a really good team of people who not only that you can trust, but people who are good at what they do with mechanics, with homebrew, with lore, if you're not the one writing it, And you don't have to have tons of people to start a Living World or Westmarch. You can kind of start it small and slowly build up. Because honestly, a Living World server, like if D&D World were only like 100 people, it'd still function probably pretty similar with just a few small changes to be a lot less focused on a large group.
You do need people who are dedicated. If you
You do,
have,
yeah.
I'll comment on that on my turn.
Yeah. But
Okay,
yeah,
so
go
you
ahead.
finish up first.
No, you go.
Okay. All right. For obvious reasons, D&D World was once at 100 people and things were very different. First of all, to address a question at large, most people do not want a living world. They do not want their own server. They do not want a Westmarch. What they want is their own campaign. Most people, when they say they want to play, they really mean that I want to play in a game that's consistent and can actually have like a certain number of sessions that I can commit to. However, this does not happen, so they resolve themselves to try to make their DIY their own solution, which is getting a server. Well, let's ask the question: do you like administration work? Do you like forcing yourself to do things that you don't exactly want to do?
Do you like telling people no all the time?
Do you like telling people no all the time? Yeah. Do you enjoy being hated and by people who you say no to? And do you enjoy tying a large amount of your life to this? If your answer to this is yes, then great, man. I hope to see what you come up with, and I hope you don't break.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Nerp, what do you
I'm gonna go off of what FG said just a little bit. Sorry, just quick thing. As an moderator or an administrator in these servers, depending on how big it gets, if anything ever happens and someone decides to split off or whatever, you will always be the bad guy.
Yep.
Prepare for anyone and everyone who has ever run into you to have a bad word to say or come up with shit, because at the end of the day, like, you are having to be that person to kind of quote unquote ruin their fun or tell them no or be the person in power, and you're always going to be a bad guy. So you have to learn to be okay with people not liking you.
Oh yeah.
And that's like a huge part of it.
Nobody likes to run it.
Yeah, one of my admins who is right now in the chat has been compared to a Nazi before, just for
that's pretty nice.
Literally, I think he was like just telling him he couldn't do something. Silver, maybe you want to explain the chat for those in our server, but to not go into that too much detail, he got banned pretty quickly. Continuing what I was saying earlier, like people, as I'm just going to talk a bit my own experience since I didn't really contribute much to previous questions, but D&D World was at one point 100 members, and for me, I did not learn anything I did not have a mentor in the beginning. I did not have a model server to go off of when like I said earlier, at my time, there was no such thing as like large-scale living worlds. There was no such thing as large-scale as much as when you wanted to find a server, you go on this spot and you literally comb through raw. So there was no such thing as like, okay, let's go and like work for the server first, and then I think, oh, this could be improved on, so I make my own server. I stumbled through basically the first 1 year or so with the server, and I think we reached 100 members within 2 months. But the thing about being a big server now is that I get a lot more resources and a lot more personnel who can help me with things. So I would disagree that we will be exactly the same at 100 members because simply put, we wouldn't have those people to work on it.
Oh yeah, that's why I wasn't saying exactly the same. I think that you'd be of the same mindset going there, rather than the server obviously would have a lot of differences for size stuff, but you guys would still be progressing down the same path. And that's kind of what I was getting at, is that no matter what size your living world is, you're going to be progressing down the same realizations that a lot of other living worlds have. Realizing, oh, we should probably make an economy system. And then the next one is like, oh, we should probably have a system for questing. And then going down all these different paths, no matter how big you are, how small you are, you're going to be doing that. So it's good to just kind of, if you want to make a living world server, start and actually get the work done and start like testing it at the very least, you know?
I would
And
say, definitely going off of that, you need to have stuff set up before you start. You have to have an idea of how games are going to be run. You need to have an economy system because games are maybe 5% of someone's time on the server. The rest of it is usually hanging out. And that can be filled with downtime stuff. Have an organization system, a record recording system. Knowing that you need that and having that set up before you actually open your server is great. Also have a rule set or a rule book, and a place where you can post any updates to those rules, because they will always be changing.
Yeah, and I think we should let Nerp speak. He's been trying to for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry, bud.
I've been agreeing for things, and I have had some thoughts, but overall, some of them were answered already by other people, so it's fine. I do appreciate it. Going off of that, though, there is another big thing that's a key help if you're wanting to start your own living world, and that would be if you don't really have the lore of a homebrew world set up, use a pre-built campaign setting. Use Greyhawk, use Faerun, use Wildmont. Just having a lore is a huge benefit to your team. If they don't have lore, they have pretty difficult making missions in a world that's only, the head person has access to.
I feel so called out right now.
I'm saying this going from the previous living world where this was a huge issue.
We need to prove to this.
Yeah, to be clear, though, I'm the style of DM who makes the lore as I play. So, like, if my players are set in one region, I will focus my lore prep in that region and build it outwards from there. So it's not a bad way of building worlds. It's just you need to have some framework for your DMs just to start out. It'll make things so much easier for you. So any advice, have a framework, have a lore framework.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, like you can start off with fairly basic stuff, especially if it's just like you and your friends or you and your few groups of players without lore. But if you're wanting to expand into a massive community, you're going to want to have lore written down and not just in like a few key members' heads or on pieces of paper where they can't easily access
passed
it.
out and they're just kicking me.
I mean, yeah. I
just feeling
I don't mean to attack you.
I mean, yeah, I agree completely. If you don't have the time, this is especially for people who want to do this but don't have a lot of time in real life. Have a team to do this, and if you can't find a team, just like find something pre-built if you're really dead set on making a living world. Find like literally just copy Dnd World server and use that as a template.
No, I was CND you if you copy us. But yes, it's laugh at my jokes. We need to prove the crowd we are worthy. thing together. But also, this is not political marriage. Also, to say, I will argue if you have no time, please do not commit to West
Yeah,
Marches.
because
I
you will
mean,
get
100%.
you will get questions, you will get PMs, you will get pings all hours of the day and night. And
yeah.
if anything happens to the server, if someone like blows up and causes a huge stir and you're not on or around and you don't have a mod team that's on or around, it's just going to be a shit show until that's taken care of. So
Yeah.
like be prepared. That's I think the biggest thing that I could say is have your organization tools ready and be prepared.
And make sure you have at least 3 hyenas behind you.
Yeah, pretty much.
One fireball, bro. That's all it takes. Anyway, I think is that all of our set questions?
I think
believe
Kiniz
so,
wanted
yeah.
to speak on the final
Go
one.
through one more. Just take on this is that if you want to make a living world, just I know we kept saying this, but just do it. Like you can start so insanely small. You can start with just taking a D&D campaign that's ongoing, make a server for it, make it public, get a rules section out there, get a looking for a group section out there, and that's the bare minimum you need.
For
And then you
Westmarch,
just
yeah.
start running games. And Living World or Westmarch both apply.
Well,
And
the
you
thing is,
just-
a living world has prerequisites for it, and this is what we've kind of been talking about this whole time. Is that
Really-
with a living world, you
You
have.
don't need an economy for a living world. You don't need a downtime.
Well,
for a
this
living
is
world.
kind of
Most
what we
you need
were.
is a change when you
Well,
have the
Kiniz,
bare minimum.
this is what we've been talking about this whole time. Is that the Westmarch idea is that it's just campaigns that are persistent in a world. For it to become a
Mhm.
living world, you need a lot of extra moderation, a lot of extra control, a lot of extra logging, and a lot of other things. And
I'm
for people
telling you,
just
that
starting out, that's
really-
not possible, you know?
You really don't. Like the barrier to entry is so small. I've seen groups of 6
You doing?
people make a full living world overnight because they just
I'll
wanted
just
to.
I
quickly
mean-
jump in here. I find that actually both people are right. You can have a living world. You can have a West Marches with just like 6 or 10 or 50 people, and you can be successful at that. It's just very hard when you are the barrier of entry is low. The
Yeah.
bar of satisfaction, the bar of fun people expect at this point is very high. The reason being that, okay, fine, maybe I give myself a little bit credit, but West Marches and Living Worlds have developed over the 5 years that D&D 5e has been around, and now there are so many complex and there are so many complex and just well fleshed out worlds with full on staff teams working on it that, I mean, in a sense, you are marketing your server to prospective players. And if you don't have like any particular strong points, you're just basically just winning by hoping to go on the top of this spot, and like maybe someone might click on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Another quick thing. If y'all aren't doing this to like make it into any sort of business or whatever, and that's like 95% of these, this is your free time. This is your hobby. You don't know anybody else anything. So if anybody's coming to you and like ordering you or demanding stuff from you, even if they're very helpful, kick those people. All they do is cause you stress, and at the end of the day, like they're going to be more people. So
Yeah.
don't stress yourself out.
I mean,
with
that's
this
just a
stuff.
moderation tip. If someone
Yeah.
tries to tell you how to change your rules and you don't want to listen to them, or you think your rules are fine and you're not genuinely being like a swear word about it. I don't want to swear here, but if you're being okay about it and they're just like, hey, I don't like the fact that you don't have this in your rules or this in your world, you can just say, all right, and then ban them. As harsh as that may sound.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but if you have trolls in your server, definitely have a moderation team to handle them.
Yeah, exactly.
There are
I mean,
people who are not really like trolls, though, who think that they are an active and helpful member of the community, but in turn, all they do is kind of either drag you down, cause problems behind the scenes, or start drama. You really don't need that on a server.
Yeah,
you
they
should
do.
kick and ban them.
Those kinds of people do exist. A lot of times you can just confront them about it and they'll back off a lot of times. But for the rare occasion where you confront someone and they go, I'm just trying to help, and they keep doing it, not knowing that what they're doing is really just pissing a lot of people off, but that's just a general moderation tip. not just a thing for Living World.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
that's
used
true.
for Living Worlds, but it's again,
We
what's
got a
that gonna say?
Q&A because we got about 10 minutes left, give or take.
We have a.
Oh, yeah.
We're going till.
We have 40
We're going
minutes.
till 8:30.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're on till
Yeah.
8:30.
Yeah. So
okay,
we can
then
do
I
this
need
in
to
a
go
Q&A.
get something.
Pull up one of the. We
All
can
right.
pull up one of the questions we didn't.
Yeah.
answer.
While Ace is going, I'm just gonna let people be aware. If you want to go into the Q&A thread, for those who have not been using threads or does not know what that is. If
Is it
you're
pinned
on,
in chat?
it's if you mouse over on PC, the Nomec channel, you should see a Q&A thing to the right. I don't know how to do it on mobile. Does someone here know how to do threads on mobile?
It's literally just a little hash icon at the top of the bar, and then just click on it and click Q&A.
Yeah. Okay, so the first question for the Q&A.
Oh, and can I get a link so I can post a link to this for the chat?
To the Q&A?
Yeah.
I don't think you can.
It's a
link a
thread.
thread.
I don't think you can
Oh,
post
I
a
think I
link.
can.
to it.
Actually, wait, hold on. One moment. I just need to grab.
Oh.
Oh, actually, no,
All
I
right.
can't. Sorry.
So the first question we pretty much answered entirely. It's the ideas of how to start a server, what to do, what not to do, etc. We've kind of basically answered that as a full. If they have further questions, you can just ask them there. How does homebrew fit into your living world? For me personally, the system I work with is not D&D. I work with my own custom system where homebrew is not a term that exists because everything developed with the system is technically official. So for me, there's not really a need for homebrew. But for a lot of other servers out there who actually use homebrew, usually how it goes is there's a team for balancing. You have some people who go, hey, can I have this in the world? And then, your team goes, yes, or no, that's horribly unbalanced. It's pretty simple. Usually there's forms to submit or something along those lines. Anyone else want to weigh in on it?
Oh, okay. I literally just wall flashback when I saw that question because homebrew is okay. Ace gets what I mean. Yes, you see, this is
Yeah.
our ship. We are face. Yes, we are going to conquer the world with our mutual pessimistic demeanor and our nihilistic view to setting up your own server. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, but I would recommend if you're just starting out, don't approve homebrew, please. I went down that path. It was a terrible and very dark path. Like maybe you can consider that in the future, but I would err on the side of caution and go no for starters. Do people bring their own homebrew world? I mistakenly started the server with the impression that I could probably go build it as I go along. This is a terrible idea. If you're starting a server, come with your own law or have a pre-built one. Are they mechanics heavy? Yes. If you are like a living world server, like a real living world server, you're probably going to be building a lot of systems to keep people occupied in their downtime or just to address community needs. Because let's say people want to get magic items, but their magic items is difficult to get outside of Quest, and so maybe you want to address this by having a magic item shop. So
Or some
that's
way to
where
craft them.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it is going to
definitely-
be a lot of testing in the long
Yeah.
run. Like, no matter what you do,
Yeah.
it's always like alpha test, beta test, and then
Yeah, this
Charlie
is-
test, and then just be like, okay, it's still not working. We got to pull it and do it again.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
kind of why I was alluding to earlier with why you'd rather start as a West March than a Living World, because a West March doesn't have to have all that. A West March could simply just be a few campaigns in a persistent world. The Living World idea is that people should be able to, or at least have the ability towards being able to do anything they want. Whole player freedom and roleplay idea. Player freedom meaning you need to develop a ton of extra systems just so people can do what they want. And you don't have to do absolutely everything, sure, but the more you have, the better,
Regarding homebrew, and the world of Syrik, it's definitely a huge thing in the server. I mean, we have a channel dedicated to homebrew discussion, which we are also accepting ideas for homebrew that players or just people in the server want to send our way. As stated earlier by several people here, definitely needs peer review, definitely needs testing, several different tests before it is actually officially approved. But for any living world, as mentioned by Chris, you need to have certain systems in place for it to allow for certain freedoms. I mean, depending on the system, of course, because 5e, for example, doesn't have a crafting system. It doesn't have a magic item crafting system.
It kind of
Those are-
does. It's just terrible.
I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
can we consider it real though?
Okay, sci-fi again. But yes, do not use the default magic item system if you ever plan to do a Living World. Actually, don't even use it if you want to save your sanity.
Yeah.
So
I looked at
these
that
are
when we were
things that we've
building
worked on.
TFC, and it didn't even work for like a preliminary start. So it's been reworked several times, and like magic item crafting especially, you need to like test. And I understand that homebrew is more focused on like homebrew classes and homebrew like races and stuff, but there are also homebrew mechanics that you need to be aware of and try to fix to better fit the population or the game that you're running.
Fortunately for the homebrew that we're using, all of this has been tested in my own home games for several years now. So it's all thoroughly tested in terms of the core uses of like expanded conditions or different classes and economy system that's in there, magic item crafting, which is still work in progress, but it's concepts there. Overall, though, as you were saying, homebrew itself, it's better to look at it less in terms of like this is a class and more of anything that's not core is homebrew.
Yeah.
Another thing to
sorry.
consider is that there is a distinction between homebrew that people bring to the server and homebrew that is made for the server. And a lot of times, smaller servers that I see attract people by allowing huge amounts of homebrew. You know, I've seen a server that has 700 homebrew races. And they had people in the server because they got to play homebrew, and almost everything got approved. It destroyed the balance of the server. It made sessions take a huge amount of time where players had to look up all these races and classes.
Yeah,
And that
I mean,
kind of strikes me as an example of this is what happens when you don't moderate your homebrew that you approve. But there is a really nice part about servers once you start to expand and people start to want to develop your server to have custom homebrew, like a class or a subclass that exists in this world specifically because of the lore, like a spy organization or something similar to what the Strixhold colleges are.
Recommendation for if you're just starting and you've never really run anything like this before, you don't have a lot of experience, is to start with core and then test homebrew stuff and then allow homebrew stuff if you are going to be able to moderate it well.
Yeah, I also recommend finding someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to homebrew, because, I mean, first off, it's nice to have more opinions on something always, and if you yourself are the only person solely testing it, not even with a group, there's going to be problems. It's it's part of philosophy. If you do something yourself, you're more likely to fail than if you had other people helping you, just because of peer review. But beyond that, you yourself might not be someone who's great at homebrew, so it's always good to find someone who's really good with homebrew and be like, hey, can you help us balance this class, this race, this item, this mechanic, whatever. That's pretty much a key component. Like I said this earlier, you want to have a good staff team. One of those key staff members is someone who can handle homebrew effectively,
Yeah. And even then, like having more than one eye on it is also good.
Yeah.
I think we are having a lot of questions coming in, so let's move to the next one.
Yeah, so next question is the one that says from Twitch chat, how does evil exist? Where does it belong in a living world?
Oh, that's pretty good, actually.
I mean, I'll let you guys answer this one.
I'll let my new wife answer first.
It depends on the size of the server. Again, a lot of this is dependent on what you want your server to be. If you want it to be more living world, more player dependent, it's going to probably need to stay small. If you want it to be like huge, it's going to have to be like more West March dependent. On bigger West Marches, we allow it as long as it doesn't ruin other people's good time. So if you're in a game, like actually sitting at the table, rolling dice, talking to your DM, and this evil dude isn't helping your party at all and isn't like doing anything to continue the story or help or anything like that, and he's really just dragging everybody down, the DM does not have to accommodate that person and they can kick the table. If you play an evil character who makes evil decisions and have his reasoning behind their like evil choices, but you still play the game with other people, and like, yeah, you might make decisions that piss them off, but you do keep the mission moving and keep things like going, that's a different kind of evil. That evil can be allowed because at the end of the day, they're not ruining fun for everybody else. They're just playing the game they want to play it.
And I agree with a lot of that, but I do want to note that this again depends on the system you're using, depends on the scalability of things. If the world is more closer together in terms of difficulties, then yeah, you could have evil that is a bit more widespread. But generally, how I handle evil, or really any major events, is I like to theme things. Basically, the encounters of a world, you have like bandit camps and maybe a goblin encampment or something like that. Normal stuff. But say there's a demon invasion and it affects the whole world. I basically go to my DM team and say, hey guys, replace all the encounters you have with demon-related ones. That way, it doesn't affect absolutely everybody in the sense that they all have to fight demons now, but more so that the world is now changing and there's events happening in the world, making it more world dependent rather than individual player dependent. And there are still regular quests run, of course, but basically the ratio would be normally like it's like 5% are demon now. It's now 50% are demon because of this event. And maybe if my
Yeah.
players kill enough demons, a demon lord will appear that some higher level players can go, kill.
That's actually really, really interesting to bring up because, like, again, I know that FG and I are coming from like the same place with big numbers and stuff, but in us giving, like, at least on TSC, and giving DMs the ability to kind of run their own area, they can do that, and it'll affect their games and maybe the people around them if they coordinate and talk to each other enough about it. But it also can happen and not have to affect literally everyone, and have our like moderation team have to step in and stuff.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I'm saying is that as long as you don't make it affect people's role play when they're not questing, you should be fine. But the moment you step in and go, okay, now the city is on fire, everyone who's role playing in the town square, their character is now taking damage. Like that's going to be not only annoying, but also incredibly difficult to track. You're better off saying, hey, here's like a marker of how the demons are doing. Go out and quest, fight demons, and the marker will slide more towards your favor. If it goes too far in this direction, there'll be one negative event that we will tell everyone about way beforehand. Again, communication is key in this regard. So yeah,
All right.
that's my
going on with evil. I think it also should be talked about for evil players themselves. How do they function in the living world? For ours, I think it's really dependent on kind of going on with that, where you don't really want players to just exist to be a troll. You need to have reasons for evils to exist. Like your evil team, you can have evil players. I think there's no real problem there. You just need to make sure your evil players are there to work as a team, or basically not there just to troll. Trolls, like in any major server, like even Minecraft and the like, they're banned. But if you have a proper goal, if you have proper reasonings behind your character, it can flourish in any like living world easily enough. With ours, alignment for players themselves isn't really important. It's more of a metaphysical thing term for like outsiders, so like angels and demons. Players, it's more of just a gauge of generally where your morality lies, but it's not going to really affect your choices. You can roleplay how you want to roleplay.
Yeah, and to kind of talk on that actually, usually with the living worlds I work with, there is some kind of crime system to support evil players in the sense that
Yes.
if you have evil players in the server, you shouldn't just let them be evil and go, nothing happens to you, you kill the player, whatever. If they decide that they're going to kill another player character, one, they need to prepare for it. They can't just walk up to them on the street and stab them. A guard will walk over and say, hey, stop that, and then hold person them. And if that doesn't work, then the other guard is going to hold person them, and it's basically not going to be good for them. Even if they're a high level character, it's going to be difficult for them to just do an open street, like out in the open murder. So a crime system basically states that there is a criminal underground where these people can find resources and support, so they don't have to do things on their own. So so the players who aren't necessarily that intelligent in terms of like tactics or playing, they can't go, well, I should maybe do this at night. Maybe the player doesn't think that. They can use these criminal undergrounds as a resource to help them with that idea.
Yeah, actually, I'll go one step further. I think that if you want to have evil characters, definitely have a set of evil characters will need a higher degree of regulation. And honestly, the experience of having an evil character in a game can vary from person to person. In our server allows it because we already have established systems to take care of it. We have PvP system. We also have a crime system. And honestly, to talk about what Chris said, I would also just take a step further and just have OC rules sometimes, because at the end of the day, this is a game that the end goal is you want people to have fun. You want people to
Exactly.
yes. Come on, Ace, let's go. All right.
You can
But
be
yes,
evil and you can still let other people have fun.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest qualm I have with people who play evil characters. A lot of people who play evil characters either play them very well, or they tend to just be like, I'm going to be evil. I'm just going to kill a bunch of puppies and make everybody uncomfortable. Like,
yeah.
there is a line,
Yeah.
a very clear line that people need to learn to stand on.
Yeah, the term online is you're chaotic evil versus chaotic stupid is a good way to put it, you know.
Mhm.
A person who
Is that
doesn't a person who doesn't know what evil means versus a person who understands that being evil isn't just about being a dick, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
I'm
we
sorry
probably need
for,
to
you know,
move
but
on. I know, I'm sorry, we keep fucking going off of random shit.
okay.
Another big
So
thing to consider is just that there are, in systems beyond 5e, I ran a lot of Pathfinder on Living Worlds, and even evil characters in Pathfinder are a very different thing entirely, because alignment is such a strict thing. If a paladin sees an evil character, there has to be PvP by Pathfinder rules. You know, paladins must do away with evil. If they see undead, so you can't have necromancers, and there's all these rules about how alignment in other systems is treated. So while 5e is, you know, really nice and simplistic, and you don't have to enforce things like that, there are settings and there are games where it's gonna take a lot of thought. It's gonna take a lot of community, you know, communication about what you want. And the best solution that I've seen for these servers is just doing what 5e does and making alignment sequential. Because even though it does away with some of what a system has,
I think you cut out when you were talking about
Yeah.
I heard like half of it.
Yeah.
You're still cutting out.
We do need to probably move on though, because we've been on this question for a minute. I don't mean to push, but
Yeah, so next question. How do you handle conflict on large scale servers? We kind of already went over this a few times. I think they understand virtual
have
setup.
a ticketing system or a group that you trust to be your HR department.
Yeah.
Basically.
Virtual setup to use for a living world, literally it just depends. I've seen people use I'm absolutely forget World Anvil. I've seen people use exclusively Roll20, and I've seen some servers use literally nothing. So it depends, you know, on your preference, basically.
For our server, we're using Discord as the base text platform, World Anvil for wiki, and then currently we're using map tools, but I'm looking into using Foundry.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a new place to do a wiki. It's always, you know, testing shit out and seeing what works for you. I'm sorry, I keep cursing because I'm getting tired.
You're fine.
Okay, wait. Oh my god, I'm gonna do a FG thing, but we actually have a World Anvil sponsorship. So if you ever want to like go to World Anvil, I have like I think 25% off promo code. So yeah, just hit me up.
Wow,
so cool.
Amazing.
Nice.
Anyway, so let's see other questions here. Cross server tournaments. So I actually talked about this a few different times with a few different people recently. I think I actually talked with Nerp about this, or someone in Nerp server. I can't remember. The idea of doing cross server events that are West March or Living World related. It's difficult when you're using different systems, but if you're using the same systems or at least something similar, like 5e to 5e but slightly different, then you should be fine with doing some kind of like fun for fun event. But the problem stems from the fact that there's different systems, and that literally just puts a whole blocker in the middle. Like if I'm running a GURPS Living World and someone else is running a 3.5e Living World, they're so incredibly different of systems. They're not going to work. Like you can't just, you know, you get
the only real way there is to make the character in their system and like recreate your character essentially,
which is a lot of work for just a tournament, you know.
Even in my
good
Living World, like even in my Living World, we have a lot of homebrew that we're working on to add for it. And if we have someone else's who is using just base 5e, the power level is going to be pretty drastic. It's not going to be the same level. You couldn't have a level 3 character from mine versus level 6 and have them fare off in a fair fight.
You need to have a way. You need to have a team and ability set up to. Sorry, I'm getting a call. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah,
You're
don't worry.
fine.
I'll just cover for A since you're basically the same person. But yes, it is me on our account, by the way. That's why we never speak at the same time. But I think the biggest difficulty that comes with having
Sorry about
inter-server
that.
thing is a culture issue, because like I mean, even now in the chat, like people are saying, oh, how people have different swearing policies. Like even on an OOC level, we already have these kind of differences in how we manage our servers. Imagine how much in depth it could be when we get to our characters. So I find
It can be done, but you need to have like a very good team on both sides ready to help players move their shit over and make sure that their mechanics match up with whatever mechanics you're running.
So
All
no,
right.
this isn't saying it can never be done, by the way, and especially if this is something that I've noticed hasn't been done in Living World community at a large scale yet, but a branch off server that is still officially part of a server. Like if, for example, D&D World decided to make Pathfinder World as a branch off of their own server, or something like that, that could be something that can be much better coordinated than two completely separate server owners. So just overall, there's a lot of barriers to entry with cross-server tournaments.
Please don't spoil my server members with my rapid expansion plans.
Take over the world, one text-based RPG at a time.
So
anyway.
I kind of, we should probably speed through a few of these other questions.
Yeah.
A lot of them are pretty simple answers. Like Darth's question, if a party splits, have different DMs run it is the easiest way to handle it. Just fill them in on what's happening and have them run the other sessions. Or if you have a lot of free time, just run them at different times.
If you do live missions like we do, it's really up to you as a DM how you want to handle that.
Yeah, basically. Just best way to have a lore world history be changed or evolve within the Living World. Make people aware of it in the first place. I mean, we already discussed the idea of like sweeping changes to the world with themes and stuff like that, but if you want to do an upcoming change to the world that also includes new mechanics, but also an actual lore change, tell people ahead of time something is coming, a reset is coming, some kind of either soft or hard reset. Soft meaning players still retain some things, hard meaning they retain nothing. But you probably want something alongside if you're doing a major change like that.
I do have a quick comment on that one. When it comes to sweeping changes mechanic-wise, there are always going to be a large group of people that are going to be pissed off no matter what kind of change you make, and you're just going to have to be okay with that. Because, mechanic changes need to happen. Otherwise, broken loopholes become abused more and more, and those need to be constantly fixed. So don't be upset if you need to change something, or if you're worried that the majority of the population is going to be upset. The worst thing that's going to happen is that they will leave. That is literally the worst thing. But guess what? There are always going to be people who are willing to play. So don't worry about those people.
I've heard of people who, other than leaving, would probably send bots after the radio. It can be worse, but yeah, anyway, just quickly putting my own comment. I think in Living Worlds, right, you kind of are already agreeing to sort of progress lore definitely slower compared to a regular campaign, because these kind of changes need to be discussed with your team. You need to come up with a write-up that's like newbie friendly, and you need to like see how this is going to like play into like the larger picture. If let's say you're implementing this for DMs to use, so that's my comment.
Yeah. So moving on to the next question.
We have some questions in the QA.
That's what we're talking about. Part of a West March, games take too long. So again, this is up to the DMs. They need to be the ones on top of that. If they are communicating that the game's only going to take 2 hours and then the game takes 5 hours, that's usually on the DM for not testing it out in the first place. And it's rarely ever the player's fault, because if the players are like literally staring at every rock they walk past, yeah, sure, you could argue it's the player's fault, but most players aren't going to be like that. So
most dungeon masters need to be very upfront and say this game should take between this many hours and this many hours, and there needs to be a mechanic that if it goes over, it is no fault on the player. And
Mhm.
usually the DM's not at fault either, but they need to be very upfront with how long their games take because people can only put aside a certain amount of time.
Yeah. And overall, with going on with that, if a mission is taking too long, the DM fully has the ability to cut content. So if there's like a random goblin encounter, doesn't really have much to the story, you can easily just remove that encounter to save time. So that's one of the main things that can help with that. Also, you can remove certain functions within a mission. So if your mission itself has, for example, a secret door that leads into a sub boss, you can just remove that secret door. That'll save on time. Just as a dungeon master, there's things you can do to reduce the time the mission has remaining.
As a dungeon master for like live play games, I would say you usually want to set aside 20 minutes of combat if people are below level 5, 30 minutes up until level like 8, and then 45 minutes to an hour for every encounter past level like 10.
Yeah,
and that's just like a rough backbone.
Yeah, and
So,
this again depends on DM style, depends on system use, depends on literally a ton of factors. So, I mean, take this not necessarily with a grain of salt, but like understand that this is just we can't be the arbiters of truth about this. We can only give you a rough estimate.
Yeah, and in addition to that, if you only really have 2 hours to play per session, another big thing would be for the DM to do is not be afraid to railroad your players. Like I am fully against railroading for the most part, but it is a tool that is sometimes necessary. And if your limitation is 2-hour game time, that is a time where you'd be using railroading.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, like to go off what Nerp said, you as a DM need to have some sort of pacing skills. Like if your players are like lingering a bit too long, you need to be you need to push them along and like maybe stop over describing certain characters so that they don't just stop and think that it's like a important law plot bit. So yeah, you kind of need to take responsibility a bit for that. For our server, we basically have a blanket rule that like most games, lower ones take at least like 4 hours, and then when you go higher level, obviously this gets longer and longer because of combat. And this is like if you desert, like if you have to leave the game before the 5-hour mark, you don't get a penalty because we understand.
Yeah. All right, next question.
So the next question is, we're gonna skip all the way down to Sir Nerp's his chat's questions from Dr. Jund. From each panel member, what is the most valuable lesson you learned from your time running Living Worlds or Westmarch games that haven't been mentioned so far that you wish you knew when you started? I'll let you guys talk on that.
Jesus Christ.
It's
What a
a
loaded
it's a
question.
heavy-handed question, yeah.
I gotta think about everything I said.
I don't know if this is a similar thing with your guys' systems, but prior to the Living World, I didn't really write down like my notes in like a standard format, like a adventure path format. I kept them generally on map tools itself within like certain locations, so like a door that's trapped, I would have it on the door. Living World itself taught me how to properly write out mission formats, gave me like a system that I built to help other people because was part of a training team, the head of training team. Now I have a co-head. But that overall, that helped me a lot with writing missions, keeping things cohesive in storyline creation. So it's huge help.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for me, you need to... I had no idea how much extra time of my life this would take. I have 2 jobs, and this is like a third one. And it sucks sometimes, and I'm very happy that I have the team that I have now because when it was just me, it was a lot of work. I just realized that it is a lot of work. And if you don't continually put the work in, unless you have a team willing to run it for you, your world will die because you're the one that's applying all of the lore and the information and the mechanics and stuff. And like, you just have to be willing and understand that you have to designate a lot of time to this.
I'd say,
think.
go
Okay,
ahead.
you go first.
Okay. I'd say for me, the thing that Living Worlds have taught me the most is it's kind of weird because this is gonna take a step back from all this for a moment, but like I've always been interested to see how players react to things. And usually when I'm running campaigns, I have a small group of players and they react to things normally. And it's fine. I get a gauge of what their reactions are and I can better tune the world for it. But it's a very slow process. It takes a lot of time and effort. I have to go through hundreds of not hundreds, probably dozens of campaigns just to get the tuning right. But with a living world, there's so many people, so much feedback, so much reaction, so much activity that it becomes so much easier when you have more people. And I realized that going forward, if I want to develop the lore of something, I should do so via Living World or Westmarch because it's going to be the easiest way for me to understand where I'm going wrong, what I need to improve on, and what is fun for the players because I'm having such a huge player base try it out. You know?
Yeah. Peer review is very important.
Exactly.
Okay,
Something
so-
important.
Well,
Every time. Every time.
So sometimes our bodies get confused and we try to use both of our mouthpieces at the same time. But yes, go ahead.
Something important that I learned is just that you really have to sit down and say, what are people coming here for? Normally, the answer is fun. You know, people come on Discord, they come onto your living world to play D&D, to play 5e, to play Pathfinder, to play whatever. But at the core, they want to have fun. And you need to kind of design your mechanics and your staff teams and make sure everyone's aware that the first thing your focus should be on is making sure people enjoy their time on the server. Sometimes that means compromising rules. Sometimes that means, you know, saying, okay, this rule exists and it exists in the game. And if we wanted to play this game perfectly, we'd have to keep the rule. But everyone hates it. It's no one's having fun. You know, a whole server where everyone has to be, you know, good or neutral, and no one can have any like evil characters or thoughts because doing so will cause a level 20 paladin to smite your booty, as it were. You really gotta decide, okay, what's fun, and focus that. And I've seen a lot of servers not do that, and they suffer for it. So at its core, that's something I learned.
An easy way to deal with that, like, I guess also a little bit of advice: have some NPC that's like your president or your guild master or your queen or your king or whatever, who has the power to take care of players that are being assholes to everybody else.
Mhm.
Like, sorry, it's just a little tangent that I forgot to say earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
I think there are so many lessons that have. I joke to my staff members that I change my personality every 3 months just because of how much character development I undergo being in this position. Instead, I guess I would impart this lesson on people who may not have realized this. How many servers do you think actually make it past the 1 year mark? How many do you think make it past 2? Our servers encroaching on 3 years, and I really feel like I've lost half my lifespan. And so many servers die out. Many, just because of there are so many reasons of which they just feel that. Because the truth is there are many lessons to be learned when you are doing this server. So I guess eventually there will be the question of, do you think this is worth it? What is worth it to you to have your server around? And so this is the kind of point where you either break or make it. So this, I mean, it's food for thought. Many servers don't.
I think that the lifespan of a server is dependent on the people willing to put in the work to keep it alive. If you don't have a big enough team, or if you don't have a team that's dedicated, it's not going to stay alive for very long. And if you feel that happening, get a new team. Don't be afraid to kick people from your moderation or from your dungeon masters or whatever. I've done that. It sucks, but like if they don't have the input, you know, get them out of there and get somebody else fresh faced and willing to put in the work to make things happen.
This kind of goes right into the very next question, which is what do we look for in staff members, GMs, moderators, etc. And you can kind of speak more on that, Ace, if you'd like.
Oh, okay. I look for people who have a lot of impact on the server as a player first. If they are already, we have open applications for staff members. We will take anyone who is willing to work, and we kick people who are inactive after 2 months. So we are very up to date with our activity as far as our staff members go. And if you want to be a staff member and you like the server, any work you put into it, we will take you. But for moderation side, you have to be a very active staff member and one who is willing to understand why changes are being made, even if you disagree with them. You have to be willing to put in the work to deal with people who will not like you, who will yell at you, who will upset you because they call your personality traits into account when something that they don't like happens. And you have to have great customer service if you're on a bigger server. That's a huge thing for at least TFC. I don't know about you guys, but
Yes,
we
of course.
will always take people for moderation who have just a good personality overall and are recommended by other players and members of the community.
Age just gave way too in-depth of an answer. For me, I was just going to go off my own personal opinion when I choose when what makes me have a staff member who I especially take notice of. But okay, I'll go into depth. So first of all, as from a server owner point of view, people who are really valuable to me are those who are very hardworking and they are willing to see things from an objective point of view, especially when you have something as immersive as like TTRPGs. A lot of times people can get caught up with emotions and they are trying to look out for their own values and their own stake in the server, and that's understandable, but it's not someone you might want on the staff team. So someone who can provide an unbiased point of view, or at least if they are biased, they acknowledge it and they take steps to remove their bias from their opinions. As for how our application team vets applications, we are looking for people who, as A said, have a very good personality, but I feel like for us, this extends to DMs as well, because likely DMs are going to be your first point of contact other than other players when you enter the server. And it's very important for us that you have a very good experience and that your DM is someone who is not just unprepared. They are not, they bail after like one session. We're trying to look for somebody who is committed and who really cares for their players.
Nerp, you got anything else to add?
I mean, overall, that what you guys said is pretty much on the nose there. But for our Dungeon Master specifically, the big thing that we're looking for would be the ability to take criticism well. That's a huge thing. The ability to compromise on, like, if you have a team of like 6 people, for example, all working on how to build a specific magic item, just as an example. The ability to compromise if one side, like if 3 people are looking to get a certain function on the item, but the other side are like, no, that function cannot exist. Just full stop. There needs to be some give and take. Both sides need to be willing to work with the other side to push forward, because otherwise you're just deadlocked and nothing gets done.
Yeah,
and that's a huge issue.
I'll build off of that, and then I want to talk about moderation for a moment, because that's kind of my forte. When it comes to hiring just people for homebrew or lore or things like that, I have one rule of thumb that if an idea gets presented by somebody, unless it is absolutely outlandish, we never fully reject the idea. We instead work on the idea. We mold it. We turn it into something that could be more suitable for the server, for our intentions, for whatever. But we never outright reject something unless it is absolutely absurd. And this goes both ways. If I say something like, hey, we should do this kind of system, if someone says, no, that's a terrible system and gives literally no reason for it, I don't think them as a good staff member, because they're just complaining at that point. They're not offering constructive criticism. And that kind of rule of thumb, we don't really have a voting system in that regard. We instead basically go, okay, here's the idea. Can anyone offer any ideas for how to improve this? And if nobody says anything that can improve it, we either assume A, it's good to go, or B, it's absurd.
Yeah, we have the opposite point of view, but it just depends on what you're running.
I didn't want to be rude, but anyway.
I understand that. I understand that, yeah. I get it, don't worry. And so for moderation, I wanted to talk about, because I do manage a few Living World servers, but I primarily manage the community servers, and a lot of them, honestly. And what I've seen moderation-wise, the most admirable trait you want in any moderator is someone who is personable, is a good way to put it. A person who can actually sit down and talk with somebody. You
Mhm.
don't want a moderator who just goes, "Oh, you broke rule 1, ban." Unless rule 1 is like, don't be racist or something, and they just said the N-word in general chat, that shouldn't be the case. If rule 1 is like, I don't know, you get my point, that the rules are set in stone, yes, but they're not so set in stone that they can never be slightly altered or looked at differently. You have to
I
have a staff
actually
member
think
willing to
that's our
understand
rule
that.
too.
Yeah,
That's why I'm like trying not to.
yeah, but yeah, like
Honestly,
you
I
have to
think
have. Oh, sorry.
rather than saying like rules can be looked at a different way or rules can be bended, I think the better phrasing would be follow the spirit of the rules.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is you want a moderator team who understands the rules, one, but two, understands that the rules are a guideline. They are not the be all end all of the server, and they should at all times be a person, be a human being. Like I have seen too many moderators go, I
They
don't
get
really want to
power
talk to
trippy.
you. I don't want to talk to you
Yeah.
about this, get banned, get kicked, get warned. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah, yeah,
discuss it
yeah.
with the person. The person then goes, why am I getting warned? Why am I getting kicked? Why am I getting banned? No response. That tells you that person is not a good moderator if they don't want to communicate.
I will say having channels specifically for communication between moderators is great. And having a rule set for moderators about, hey, if you want to kick somebody that's being a butthole, you got to like let everybody else know the reasons why, and everybody else got to look into it. It's got to be a consensus type of thing because, yeah, you don't want somebody to get power trippy. Unfortunately, guys, I am currently at a work event and I do need to go now. This was
I
great.
mean,
I
you're fine to go. Where time's up
really
after
hope
all.
everybody
So.
has had a good time, and I'll see my guys later on. FG, we got to set a date for the wedding, okay?
Okay, I'll text you. Text me back.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
I will also be stepping out now. It was great to be here.
Yeah.
I'll chill around.
We also have the giveaway. FJ, do we want to handle that right now?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, for those who have been chilling in our chat and have not been up to date, so if you registered for our event using the link in GenCon info channel, then you are eligible for a chance to win $200 plus to a charity of your choice. So if you are not sure, Kiniz, can you still register if you wanted to?
Okay. There are currently 20 people who have checked in and registered. Well, there's about 70 or 80 people who have registered on the site that was linked for the Gen Con for our tickets.
I highly
85
suggest. Yeah, I
Yeah.
highly suggest just picking the ones who have the check mark next to them. That means they redeemed
Yeah.
their tickets.
Yep. Of those
20
who redeemed their
people.
tickets, there are 20. So, in a rather iconic twist, I need someone to roll a d20.
Oh,
Mm.
dun, 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 dun. Honestly, I will offer this to Ace, but well, I'll roll in her spirit. No.
Okay, FG, roll a d20.
Hey.
Let's see what we got.
Oh!
Nice.
Okay, number 20. That is Shen Shi Wei.
Okay.
All right.
If they can reach
Please.
out to us,
Yep.
that'd be great.
Please reach out. Any of us would do. So depending on which server you're in, and we'll get that sorted out for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in the chat, can you like just give a moment to see if there's anyone who
We'll give it like a few minutes for them to see if they show
Alright.
up. I was going to say that I'm going to continue streaming for a little while after this. If you guys want to join me on my Twitch stream, I will be discussing some of the unanswered questions that people have about Living Worlds. If people want to ask more things, since we didn't manage to cover every question. So just come over to my Twitch stream after this whole thing happens.
Okay, so I think since we have some TFC people here, yeah, apologies that your owner is no longer around, but yeah, I will do a quick tour maybe of the server since you guys are here, and maybe you can do a live demo.
Okay, I will be stepping out. It would be great, FG, if you could give that tour to also the people who were here from GenCon to just kind of explain, what
yes, of course.
Mhm.
Okay, I will be
Then
stepping
yeah.
out. Thank you all lovely people. Have a wonderful night.
See you, Ken.
Ciao,
All
ciao.
right, bye.
And I will also be stepping out, but let's go raid Chris, shall we? Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Got
Thank
this
you.
chat. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream, but I think I'm gonna get myself some dinner. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right,
Mhm.
Good
lovely
idea.
having you, Sana.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways,
See you, Nerp.
Okay, so
yeah. Ciao, ciao.
let's see. All right, just me and you, Chris. So, all right, we're still waiting on our winner
think-
for the giveaway. So
I think they
congratulations.
did CH2050, I think was the person. They said it's me.
Who's...
This.
Okay. All right, great.
So you want to message them and handle that while I continue running this for a little while?
All right, sure.
Cool. Been nice having this event. We can talk more about future events and maybe more stuff like this eventually. Cool.
Okay. Then,
All right.
Thank you everyone for listening, and then we're going to be ending the stage here.
Yep. Just come by my stream if you want to continue asking questions. Goodbye, people of the stage.
Sorry, just need to give me a moment.
Yeah, I'll let you figure this out.
And end stage here.